for joining us today. I'm Joe Cuyavi, your Millcreek Township Supervisor, and today I have two special guests with me that I'd like to introduce. First of all, Dr. Garvey. Dr. Garvey is also the co-chair for the Perry 200. That's what we'll be talking about today. Many of you have heard a lot about it in the newspaper, on the radio, and just people talking about it. So we wanted to let you know what that's all about. And secondly, I have Carl Anderson III. Carl is also with the Perry 200. Many other things that I found very interesting talking to Carl, and we'll be talking to him about some of the things and his involvement in the Perry 200 also. Dr. Garvey, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Pleasure to be here, Joe.
Thank you for coming. Carl, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Joe. We appreciate it.
We have a lot to talk about. It's going to be a great program, so let's just get started with it. Dr. Garvey, why don't you give us a little bit of background about the Perry 200, your involvement, and some of the things that you've done in the community, because I know a lot of people know you, but time has passed. I know that when you were in Mercyhurst, a lot of great things happened. So with the Perry 200, I know there's a lot of good things happening. So just give us a little bit of background, how you got involved and why you got involved.
Well, thanks, Joe. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this. I really got involved with this because I was involved in the 1995 bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of Erie's celebration. And at that particular point, we became aware that the next big celebration would be the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Lake Erie. In that case, it was about 16 years later in 2013. So recognizing that Erie's future is tied into its past to a high degree, as all communities are, the celebrations that have been held in the past have always centered around the Battle of Lake Erie. That was the defining moment in Erie's history, when Erie was less than 500 people, had only 40 houses in the community. It was this community that built the fleet that defeated the British and gave them their greatest defeat up to that particular point, saved Lake Erie, and was a major factor in preserving the American position in the War of 1812. They had a huge celebration in 1913, 100 years after. They had another big one 150 years in 63. So we're simply continuing the tradition, Joe. Okay.
Carl, is there anything that you can add? Because I know you're a big part. Let me ask you this, Carl. What part do you play now in the Perry 200 also?
Well, Joe, I'm the chairman of the Legacy Committee, which we're really concerned in what happens after the celebration. The Perry 200 wants to leave a legacy for the community, a lasting legacy, similar to what was done in 1995 with the bicentennial, which left to the community Dobbins Landing, the tower down at Dobbins Landing. And my committee is certainly interested in doing something of a similar nature to that on behalf of the entire board of the Perry 200 to leave to the whole region.
Okay, so why have a celebration? Why are we even talking about this today and the celebration that's going to be going on, especially next year, Doc?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, celebrations are a way of getting people together to celebrate their common ancestry, their common bond that ties them together. John Quincy Adams, Joe, put it best when he spoke to the Supreme Court way back 200 years ago, when he said, "In my old age and my gray hairs, I'm convinced of one thing. We are what we were. And unless we understand where we came from, we have no idea where we are or where we might go." So celebrations give a community a chance to regroup. And progress in areas often come about in terms of planning for the future around these celebrations. In 1913, the Nolan Plan produced Erie's first master plan. When they had that celebration in 63, the Roosevelt Plan formed modern Erie. So we intend to come out of this with another plan for the future. So we celebrate the past in the present to get ready for the future. It all ties together.
Okay, great. And Carl, I know that a lot of planning has gone into this. I think, if I've heard right, years of planning have actually taken place, and I know you've been a big part of that. So explain how long this has been in the planning for the next, well, for this year and then also for 2013.
Well, I appreciate that, Joe. As Dr. Garvey said, I mean, this was really started back in 1995 after the celebration, when people began to think about what is Erie's next defining moment. But it's really been 4 years in the planning, serious planning, that the Perry 200 and the Jefferson Educational Society have been working to put this celebration together. It really started off with conversations on the national level. There was talk of a nationwide celebration for the bicentennial of the War of 1812. Pennsylvania was not included in the states that were being talked about. We were able to be in contact with Senator Bob Casey down in Washington. I went down and had a meeting with him. We were able to get Pennsylvania included in the legislation, but then other things happened on the national scene, and the national celebration has really morphed into something completely different. But what it did was really gave us a catalyst in our community to be able to move forward and really have a rallying point to be able to get local leaders together. Barry Grossman has had many conversations with then Governor Rendell, was able to secure some funding, and that was really where this really came about. And the funds from there with county government and city government and certainly townships like Millcreek have really put together the core of what's happened, and then the number of meetings Dr. Garvey's had and his expertise in fundraising has really taken that to the next level with business and private citizens.
Great. We talk about, Erie wasn't even mentioned. It wasn't even involved in any of this until the governor got involved. But then the funding was really never there from the governor's office. Things that happened. It was supposed to be, but it's not there. So with funding, Dr. Garvey, and I know that people like you. You're well known in the community. What kind of a budget are you looking at for the Perry 200, and where is the money coming from, and what are you trying to do? Because I know it's a lot of work and it has to be very expensive. It's
expensive, Joe, but we have raised about $1.6 million right now. Our goal is to about $1,750,000. When the celebration was held in '95, we raised $750,000. So this is 16 years later, 17 years, $1 million more. And the fact we've been able to raise $1.6 million is a wonderful compliment to the community. Now, about $250,000 of that has come from government. The state gave us 100, the city of Erie gave us 85, the county of Erie gave us 85, so it's 270. All the rest has come in from private enterprise, from private corporations, and from organizations in the community. So 80% of this money is not government money, it's local money from local organizations who recognize that the celebration's a chance for us to restore, regain, and promote pride in this community. But not just the city of Erie, all of northwestern Pennsylvania, the entire region. The Battle of Lake Erie, interestingly enough, in the War of 1812, the only place where anything happened in Pennsylvania was Erie. So we are it for the state.
So everything then, and I know that I've heard you speak on different occasions about where, and I believe it was it Waterford?
Yes.
That was actually the beginning of all this?
Well, sure, Waterford, in the time this battle occurred, Waterford was a much bigger city than Erie. It was the county seat because it sat on French Creek. Waterford was where all the action occurred because it was the route to Pittsburgh. Erie was a backwater. And very frankly, it was the battle that grew Erie into the port that it became today.
And really, this is what we need to not only teach the kids that are coming up today,
right,
but it's the people that are living here in Erie right now that really know very little history. I mean, my involvement's been a short period of time with you gentlemen, and I've learned so much, and it's like, man, why didn't I know this in the past? And I think that with the Perry 200 and with the Jefferson Society and everything, it's really trying to make sure that people that live here in Erie know what actually took place, why we're here, who was here, and how this really affected Erie becoming what it is today.
Well, Joe, it's interesting you say that, because we have not done a good job of teaching Erie history. We did do a pretty good job up until the 1990s, 1980s, but it began to fall off as all the emphasis began on reading, writing, and arithmetic. History often took a back seat, particularly local history. So the purpose of this celebration is to recover for the young and all the citizens of this region some pride in their past and some knowledge of it, some understanding of it. And that's more important than the parades and the fireworks. It's the knowledge of who we are.
Yep, absolutely, I agree with you.
And I think, Joe, when Dr. Garvey had mentioned that Erie was really the site in the state, that things were happening, the governor of the state at that time took all the militia and brought them to Erie. I mean, this was the place from all around the state that the militia came here. And at any given time, there was at least 2,000 land troops stationed here in Erie. And many of those people then later stayed.
That's where we get a lot of, and I know, Carl, you and I have talked too separately, a lot of the names that we have for a lot of the roads that we have, whether it's in Millcreek or Waterford or Harbor Creek or wherever, because it's really a community thing. It's not just Millcreek, it's just not Fairview or Summit or even Harbor Creek or Waterford. It's all of it, but that's where a lot of these names came from, were people that actually had their roots here because of the war, and then decided to stay here.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, this Sunday, we're having a program down at the waterfront the public is invited to, where we're going to honor the people who built the ships, who fought in the battles. And we're going to honor Erie families that go back all the way to the Battle of Lake Erie, at the time the battle was fought. And there'll be a number of people attending who are the relatives of who were there, and they're going to be presented flags on this Sunday, right?
That's great.
And as you go around Millcreek Township, for example, I mean, we could go down the list. Cawhee, Grubb, Zook, Arbuckle, Footmill, Henderson, Sterretania. We could go on with the names of the roads that go back to these families that were here protecting the county, the state here at Erie, and then their families. Some of them were here previous, but then many of them stayed here. So
it's not just the developers that came up with these names.
No.
It was the families that their roots actually started because of the war, and then those roads then were named after those families then.
Right.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think that the people really need to know is that, number one, anybody can get involved and anybody can help.
That's right.
As far as contributing to make this thing a big success, so that not only we know what our heritage is, but that the kids coming up will be able to have something to go back and look at. So if anyone wants to contribute, they can always call and make sure that they want to be a part of it. But with everything that's going on right now, and all of the parades and all the planning and all the speaking and all the meetings and everything that's going on with these families that are coming in, what kind of an impact does this have on the community and also on our economics in Erie County?
Well, it has or will have a very big impact. Next summer, we're going to team up with Visit Erie and advertise in Cleveland and Buffalo and Pittsburgh about the 4 major events of next summer. There'll be a grand patriotic parade around Memorial Day. It'll be the biggest parade in Erie's history. The governor will lead the parade. And there will be a huge community pageant next June that will involve over 300 people from the Erie region in tableaus and episodes on Erie history. It will be down at the convention center over 4 nights. Then there'll be a 4th of July celebration, Joe, in all 4 corners of the county: the east, the west, the waterfront, and the north. So that this celebration will involve the entire county, not just a piece of it. And then, of course, you've got the Tall Ships Festival that will come in August or early September. So next summer we'll bring thousands of people into the region and that's going to have a real economic boost to the region in many ways, but especially in bringing visitors into what we call the tourist economy.
Let me just back up just a little bit, because I know that I have some information that maybe the folks that are watching don't have. When you say bringing people back in, there's a plan to bring people back here. How do you?
Right. We've asked the Chamber, Joe, to head up what's called a Grand Erie Reunion.
Okay.
And we want to invite. We're going to scour the internet to try to find 50,000 former people who lived in Erie and invite them to return over the summer for class reunions, family reunions, special programs that will bring people who were once in Erie back to it, to find out what's happened to their town, to reconnect with their families, to reconnect with their friends, and most important of all, to reconnect with what Erie has become, bringing with them the ideas from where they were, and bringing with them the support of former Erie people. We hope that there'll be 10 to 20,000 people over next summer who will come back for this Grand Erie Reunion, which has been tried around the country very successfully. It's just time we do one.
Wow, that's great, because I know that the people, this isn't just a Millcreek Township channel. This goes out to a lot of communities. So as you're watching this program, I think one of the things that we'd like to encourage you, the people, to do is just this, is if you know someone that's out of town and you need to find out what's going on, and if they're willing to come back here to be a part of this grand celebration next year, they can always give us a call here at Millcreek Township, and we'll give you that information, or they can call the Jefferson Society. And if you don't have Doc's private number, we'll have that up. No, I'm only kidding.
Right.
We'll have that up afterwards, but it does. It's not. We get focused so much on our little community, but this war was all about building Erie County.
Exactly.
It's all about Erie County.
Yeah, the troops that Carl was talking about actually came from Meadville, a lot of them. General Meade sent them up to guard the ships, and Crawford County regards this as a part of their celebration. We have schools in Crawford County who are participating in all of this stuff.
I know you said that the parade is probably going to be one of the biggest things, and I know that we have our parade on the 4th of July here, and it's always big. But the governor is coming in to lead the parade next year.
Yes, he is, and we hope there will be a number of other dignitaries, including our senators. We expect there will be over 100,000 people at that parade.
Wow.
It's going to start on 12th Street and wind its way to the Bay. And we're looking at bringing in the Blue Angels and other people. It's going to be one heck of a parade, Joe.
Well, and again, it's about this community. It's not just one township versus another township, or the city of Erie.
No, we're celebrating what Erie County did. That battle was not won by a town of 40 houses. It was won by all the people in the region.
Okay. Am I missing anything, Carl, that we've been talking about as far as bringing people in? I know that that's important. I don't want to miss this opportunity that we have with people watching this program today. Is there any other way, or anybody else that they can get in touch with? If they know somebody that's living outside of Pennsylvania, who else may they contact? Do you know?
Well, the Chamber of Commerce is in charge of the reunion.
Okay.
And they should contact the Chamber of Commerce about the reunion. They're the ones who are going to put out the information and coordinate the whole thing.
Okay, great. As far as the War of 1812 and how this all plays out with Erie and the important role for our community, there's a lot of things that are developing. What's next for this region? What is the next thing that's happening? As people are watching our program today, what's the next thing that you see other than, and I know that we're taped here, but there's a celebration with bringing some people back. I think, Carl, you played a big part of trying to find out who those people were, to get them to come back and honor them.
That's a Sunday,
for their part. Then what's the next thing to happen after that?
Well, there'll be the Perry 200 Global Summit will be held at the Jefferson, and we'll be bringing in outstanding speakers. There'll be 7 speakers at the Jefferson in a 4-day period. There'll be 4 evenings and 3 lunches, and it will include nationally known people such as Karl Rove coming in, such as David Brooks coming in, such as Dr. Bylock, who is the leading expert on dying well in America. There'll be 7 people coming in to speak all across the nation on significant topics in a 72-hour period. That will occur November 12th to 15th at the Jefferson. Then we'll take off for the winter, for the holidays in the winter, and then the explosion will come again next spring and summer.
Well, people are watching, Doc. I know that they're probably saying, okay, I heard about the Jefferson Society.
Right.
Where is it located?
It's in the former, it's located in the former Jewish temple. In fact, it's the current Jewish temple. We're occupying part of that building on Upper State, 3207 Upper State.
Okay.
We occupy 2/3 of the building, and the Jewish congregation occupies the other 1/3. We have an auditorium there that seats 300 people. We have several classrooms, and that's where our educational programs, and that's where our home is. You can tell it because we have 3 flags flying in the front. We have a statue of Jefferson, or a bust of Jefferson over the entrance. And we also have what we hope will be the symbol of the parade next year in the front of the building, right on the curbside. So the Jefferson is sponsoring this, but it's the community that's carrying it out.
Okay. So, and that's what I wanted, because there's so many of the good speakers
Right.
that you're bringing in,
Right.
and if people want to find out who and get an agenda of that, they can always call. But
Right.
you know, where's it at? It's on State Street.
It's on State, right.
If you know where the Jewish Temple is, they're sharing that building right now.
Right.
And that's where all these guest speakers will be coming to
Right.
give their talks. Then.
It's a few blocks up from the Erie Stadium.
Because I know a lot of times things happen in Erie, and you hear about it on the news after it happened, and
yeah.
someone says, geez, I wish I would have known about it. I wish I'd have known where it was at and the times and stuff. So we'll try to get that out also. But if you have any questions, you can always call the Jefferson Society.
Yeah.
How did the Jefferson Education Society begin? How did that get its start?
Well, it's a good question, Joe, and it started with a conversation at the Erie Club with a number of people who said that what the community needs is to catch up with the rest of the country in terms of progressive new ideas. The community was doing okay, but there's a lag in ideas that are doing well around the country, working its way into this area. And so they said what we really need is a think tank like the Brookings Institution, that bring the newest and best ideas in all fields to the community through education, through publication, through think tank kind of activities where people try to connect Erie with the best practices in the country. And so these folks donated money to create a nonprofit think tank whose job it was solely to promote the progress of the Erie region, to bring the newest ideas to the region, to offer a forum for people to discuss community issues, and most of all, to promote the idea that Erie is and needs to be a vibrant community for the future. So it's really a very unusual organization. In fact, when Alice Rivlin came in from Washington to deliver a speech last year at the summit, when she left, she said, you know, every community in this country, particularly the smaller ones, need a Jefferson, because it's a place for people to go and learn without credits or degrees. It's a place where people go to think and talk and discuss. And she said, that's priceless.
Absolutely, isn't it? And we've been around long enough to know that, you know, someone may have an idea, but when you get people together and you talk about that idea and other ideas, that's when things start to really happen. Because I may have a great idea that I think is a great idea, but then talking to you or talking to Carl and many others, you know, that one idea can blossom and make it really something that's good for the whole community then.
Right, and to do that, the Jefferson's really a place where all ideas are entertained, from science to religion to government to culture to community issues. So all learning, Joe, comes from good conversation.
Absolutely.
And good conversation from interested, knowledgeable people is still the best way to learn.
And open-minded people.
Open-minded.
Because
right.
I might think that this is the only way it should be,
right.
but listening to you and to others, you know, you may convince me then that, you know, maybe we need to just twist it a little bit, because it'll be better for more people than just one small little group.
Yeah, well, that's how this country has progressed, is through a conversation. That's the essence of democracy.
What is the mission statement and the vision then for the Jefferson?
Well, it comes down to one line: to improve the community's receptivity to the ideas that will enhance its prosperity.
Okay.
I mean, that's a very short answer to a very complex subject, but that's what it's about. We ask the question when someone wants to come to the Jefferson to speak, will this talk enrich the community in terms of knowledge of itself and knowledge of what others are doing? How will we grow from this talk?
Mm-hmm. Great idea.
Oh, thank you.
With the Jefferson, and I'm not sure, the Jefferson is a spin-off of the Perry, or the Perry is a spin-off of the Jefferson?
That's a good question. Now, the Jefferson is now 5 years old.
Okay.
It's in its 5th year of operation. And it volunteered to lead the Perry 200 because nobody else was coming forward to do it.
Okay.
And at this particular point, we thought, my God, they had a great celebration in 1963 and 1913. We can't pass up this opportunity. So we came forward to do the Perry, and it's our job to get things going and then to turn them over to somebody else after they're going, although we'll stay with this until the end. We stepped into the breach because we felt a celebration needed to be held.
And nobody else really stepped up.
Nobody was really doing it at that point.
And Joe, here's where great conversation comes together.
Right.
Where you have people that come together and think about ideas and take those ideas from just thoughts to actually putting them together and turning them into plans.
Absolutely.
And that's what's happened here.
Yeah. Okay, as far as the board members that then serve on the Jefferson.
Well, the Jefferson board it's a nonprofit board, but it's also a non-ideological board, which means you have Democrats and Republicans. They
get along?
And they get along. And you have conservatives and you have progressives and liberals. We are not committed to any point of view. Mm-hmm. That's why you see Karl Rove coming and you see David Brooks. These are on different ends of the political spectrum. And yet we would have a liberal coming next year. It's the idea we're not committed to any ideology. We're not committed to any party. We're not committed to any particular political philosophy, except that the community needs to advance through cooperation and through entertaining of the things that make a community great. Mm-hmm. And so our job is to stimulate people's thoughts about what we can be, what we should be.
Yeah. Can anybody, I mean, we got viewers that are watching right now. As far as getting involved in the Jefferson, if there's someone that's sitting out there saying, you know what, I'm retired now, I don't have a lot going on, which I would find that very difficult.
Sure.
Because I keep hearing there's always a laundry list of things that you never get to when you were working. But if someone wanted to get involved, how would they get involved?
Well, we offer about 60 programs a year. We have 4 different terms that last about 6 weeks each. And they can become a part of the mailing list. They can receive, right now we have 3,000 people on our mailing list. And we average about 60 to 70 at a talk, but they go as high as 150 and 160 for the talk. So they should come to the talks. They're very cheap, Joe. They're $10 for one. If there's 2, there's 15. They're less than a movie. Mm-hmm. And the board has kept it that way because they want the numbers of people to attend and we have a number of free programs every term so that those who don't have even that or can't spend that for a good reason can come and listen. About 25% of our programs are free. Now this is all supported by private contributions.
Wow.
We don't get any money from governments. It's all privately funded from a wide variety of sources.
Now the different variety of people and the different variety of topics that they have, is there an opportunity for people to ask questions after these talks?
Absolutely. The talks last about an hour and a half.
Okay.
And most of the talks go an hour. And then there's about a half hour for questions.
Okay.
And they begin at 7 o'clock. They're over around 8:30. There's no parking just right around the building, so it's not a cost question.
So I would think that the best thing for people that are watching that want to get involved, number one should be the first thing they should do is basically call the Jefferson Society.
Right, 459-8000.
Okay, we'll have that dropped in.
459-8000. Easy number.
459-8000. Okay.
Right.
Get a list of those topics that are coming up that they may be interested in.
Right, we'll put them on the mailing list, and they'll receive our brochures and information, and they'd be welcome. Now,
Great.
occasionally we offer programs at other places around the community, but most of them are held right up at the Jefferson.
But if they get on a mailing list, it'll all be in that mailing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay,
all the
good.
programs will be there.
So let's talk a little bit, because we did somewhat, but as far as the political philosophy of the Jefferson Educational Society, what is the philosophy?
Nonpartisan. It's nonpartisan, which means we're not committed to any particular philosophy. We're committed to investigation, to inspection, to discussion, but we're not there to advance any cause, except one. The cause is the progress of the community and the growth of the individual. And the people who founded this were from a wide spectrum of the community, and the money that was put into it was based on the assumption that there would be no attempt to inculcate any philosophy or anything more than how do we make this community better.
How do we enlighten the people?
How do we enlighten the people, and how do we make the community more progressive?
Okay. But how was it founded?
Well, as I said, it was founded by a group of people who sat together and said, what's lacking in this town? New ideas work their way into this town too slowly. And that's because, in a sense, we're isolated from some of the major metropolitan areas. Now, that's a great advantage in many ways, because it gives the community its own identity. But it also means that ideas that percolate around the country sometimes are 5 to 8 years later when they work their way into the Erie area.
Wow. Okay.
So that's really that's what they were saying. How do we take this community and move it into far more progressive and I hate to use the word enlightened, because it's already a community that has 3 colleges and there are 4 universities. But it is, like most communities, not necessarily catching up with the newest and the best.
And we have the colleges, we have the universities,
right.
We have everything, but it's the person like myself,
right.
that basically have a job and you're not in school anymore.
Right, sure.
But you want to learn a little bit more. Now
right.
you have an opportunity.
And see, ordinarily, Joe, the colleges and universities would take that function. But they haven't done much of that anymore because they're so caught up in taking care of the undergraduates and the graduates. Mm-hmm. And so there was a hole in the community. And so we filled it.
And this fills that void then.
Fills that void, right.
And it gives people an opportunity to be able to go and who knows? I mean, again, we're talking about different ideas. I may want to know about something, and maybe the Jefferson Society has some information, but they never even thought about that topic.
Oh, that's true.
And with people asking questions and having a place to go and ask somebody, that question, now maybe that can be filled for them.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. And it begins with curiosity. Mm-hmm. All growth begins with curiosity.
And Joe, we should really say that when you ask the question, how did the Jefferson get founded? I mean, it's really the leadership and the vision of Dr. Garvey that has helped push this issue forward and bring this organization to what it's become today. And I think he may not mention that,
right.
but I should mention that.
Well,
because,
thank you, Carl, but
yeah.
Well, listen, I'd like to think I'm an educator, and that's what educators do. So,
absolutely, and that's what I can see from this talk today so far,
yeah.
is that it's all about educating the
right.
people in the community
that's
and
right.
the region to what's going on, how it took place, how it was started, and then those questions that they may have that no one's ever been able to answer for them. Now we have an opportunity, a place in Erie that you can go, ask those questions, and maybe get some answers to it.
Okay, thank you.
Why the name Jefferson?
Well, that's a good question. Originally, we were going to call it we had looked further back to like Pericles from ancient Athens, who was the epitome of citizenship. But we came to Jefferson because people would know exactly then what kind of group it was. Jefferson, whatever you might think about Jefferson, he was a thinker. He was a person committed to the life of the mind. He was a person committed to education for all. He was a person committed to no idea should be rejected until it's considered and carefully inspected. Mm-hmm. And so Jefferson was the epitome of the American intellectual. He was an epitome of the public spirit. It was Jefferson who pushed the idea of public schools before there ever was anything like that in this country.
Wow.
So Jefferson was connected with education, the life of the mind, and the civic progress. And while he had his critics, and certainly he has his own challenges, Jefferson was the epitome of what a good citizen should be.
Wow. We should be charging people for watching this program. Yeah. I've learned so much just by sitting here asking you these questions that you feel like, man, you should do something more with all this. And it's so exciting to be able to sit and hear not only what's going on with the Jefferson Society, but how they stepped in with the Perry 200 now, and all the things that are going to be happening next year. And you're right, the fireworks, that's something special. But what happens when it's all done?
That's
and
right.
Where do we go from there? And let's not forget where we actually got our founding, our grounding in this community, but let's keep it going for those kids that are in school today. I know we talked a little bit off air about the educational portion of what is actually going to be going on next year in the school districts.
Right. We hope to reach 10,000 school children. We're having books written especially at the grade levels where younger children from grade 3 all the way through grade 12 will get different history books that will reacquaint them with their history. They're being commissioned by the Perry 200.
Now, will those books also be available for the public
Yeah,
at the library?
They'll be available for the public all around the community for a very nominal cost.
Okay.
And these books will be 35 pages to 40 pages so that everybody can pick them up. They can pick them up at the supermarket stands.
Okay, that was the other thing. I was going to say, where can you get them? Because you can probably get them at the Jefferson Society. If you're going to go and take a class and learn something, you can get the books there, but you're saying that even at the grocery stores?
We're going to push them everywhere.
Okay.
Next spring, they'll be everywhere.
Okay.
And the idea is to educate the population on a wide level from grade school, from grade 1 all the way through grade 90.
Wow. And you know what? I can see my mother-in-law actually, because now that she's got so much to do, getting something like that, or maybe even me being able to find something for someone that's so hard to buy for. Saying, okay, I've got this book for you of the history of what's going on in this community and how it actually got started.
Yeah, they'll be very low priced. They'll be $1 or $2, or deliberately priced very low, just to encourage people.
You need someone like me to price those books. $1 or $2, that's not going to cut it. But
well, we'll
have to talk about that one.
Well, that's nice of you, Joe, and it's exciting to see that you're excited.
Absolutely. I can't see how you can live in this community in Erie County and not be excited after talking to you gentlemen about what you're doing and how you're planning and how you're trying to teach, and I know that's your background, the public and those that are here of how we got started.
Well, history is unfortunately one of the worst taught subjects in school. It is not done so because of the teachers, it's because very often younger people are more interested in the present and the future, not the past. You have to have, I like to say, Joe, perhaps less hair and more stomach before you get interested in history. But the older you get, the more you begin to realize the world didn't begin with you, and it's not going to end with you.
That's right.
And you begin to focus on where you came from and who you are, instead of just what you are at the moment. And so history, unfortunately, in schools turns into memorizing names and facts and dates and looks dead and stagnant and not relevant, when indeed it's the greatest story of all. Everybody loves a story. And if history is taught as a story, nobody can resist it, because it's about who we are. And those stories become compelling. But you do have to know some facts. You have to have some knowledge of dates. Unfortunately, history in many people's minds is dry and dull, but there's nothing further from the truth.
And I'm excited. I mean, and you said it, and knowing a lot more information only makes us more dangerous sometimes. But the audience is, I'm thinking, you've got the program where you're going to be doing this, and I know there's a robot. I've seen the preview, and I don't want to give the whole thing away. Oliver.
He's called Oliver. He was made by the students at Central Tech.
What a great, and to see that, and I had the opportunity to see it. What a great teaching tool for the younger kids I mean, you know, here I am, 56 years old, and I was excited to see what the school kids did, how they built it, and its message that it had.
And how they programmed it, right?
Yeah.
Although it's a bit scary, Joe, because there will come a time when, will the robots be smarter than we are?
Oh, I know what you're saying. The audience that actually is attending the classes right now, I think I know what the answer to the question is, but the classes that you're having and the speeches that are being given, what is the audience? What's it made of?
Oh, the audience is largely adult. I would say it's people, if I had to give an average age, it would be about 50. Most of the people are 40 and up because they have more time. People below 40 are creating careers, they're raising children, they don't have the time. And although we have increasingly larger numbers of students coming in sent by their teachers for particular classes in history and so on, most of them tend to be older people who have the time and who have discovered that using their minds is the most important thing they do. But that's usually when you've settled with your family, you've settled in your career, and your kids are raised enough so you've got time. So it's an older audience, but all people are welcome.
I was just going to say, those kids that are in school right now that are really interested in history, that really want to know anything about how Erie started and about the wars, there's always a class that's going on. All they have to do is really, I know my daughter's a big history person. She loves history.
Oh, that's great.
And with people like that, it's not just one age group. It's the older generation right now that's going because they have the time. But it's not limited to anybody.
No, it isn't. I would say that one of our great challenges is getting the 30s-somethings in. The 20-somethings are just beginning to think about these things because they're just finishing school. But the 30-somethings, we're seeing more and more of them, and the challenge is to get more of them in.
But Doc, don't you think that, and Carl, you can answer this too, that as people find out about the Jefferson Society, because honestly, when I first heard about it years ago, I thought, again, it's a group of people that are getting together, they're discussing ideas that they have to make this community better, but that's really not what it's all about. It's really one form of what's happening. It's really what is going on, and they'll learn more history about this area.
Well, John, also there's a matter of civic impulses. For example, there's a great need in Erie to acquaint people with the challenges of dying. Most people don't consider what to do about death until somebody in their family has to deal with those questions. And so we're looking at creating an institute at the request of several local medical personnel. They will offer classes and information on the whole process of how to deal with this question of someone who is in grave need. How you make decisions, when you should make a decision, when hospice is useful. We are way behind the rest of the country in that area. Most people just don't want to think about it until it's forced on them. So the Jefferson will take this on and provide an institute of these kind of courses and so on until it becomes more a part of the community.
Wow.
And Joe, I think you can see from the conversation, there's just such a wide array of topics that are discussed at the Jefferson, that it's not just age group, but any interest that people have. There's a high likelihood that it's going to be covered in one of the terms at the Jefferson.
Would you say, Carl, that as a problem arises in the community, that if someone doesn't have a place to go to get an answer, that they really should call the Jefferson Society to see if there's not something already in place?
Well, yeah, that's true, Joe. And you know, the Jefferson may not have all the answers to what's happening, but you can be rest assured that they'll be having discussions about it, and there'll be people sitting there trying to figure out what to do and coming up with solutions.
Yeah, there's a good example of that, Joe, is there's been a lot of discussion about the community college issue. And several people have asked us to look at the question of not necessarily creating a community college, but of sponsoring an organization that would deal with maybe year 13, that would provide for people to strengthen their skills to go to college and survive in college. The dropout rate in college is very high. In many cases, it can be 30 classes may not graduate 50, 60% of their students.
Wow.
Because they're not fully prepared to go. So we're looking at creating something that would address that. But again, we would not run it. We would just get it going. Our job is to get good things going.
Follow it through for a period of time.
Until it starts to succeed.
Stand
and then
on its own 2 feet.
Spin it off.
Okay. Well, I know that, believe it or not, the time is flying by. And I just got the word that we got 5 minutes.
Okay.
I want to thank both of you. Carl, thank you very much for coming in. Dr. Garvey, it's always a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you,
We're
Joe.
going to have to do more of this. I've learned so much about what's going on in our community. And that's what it's really about, our community.
Oh, yes.
And is there anything that last-minute thoughts that either one of you guys have that, while we have a captive audience, that you want to say as far as promoting the Perry 200 or the Jefferson Society?
Well, I would just say to the people out in the community to really have an opportunity in the next 18 months to realize and recognize the heritage that we have in our community. It's deep, it's rich, it's 200 plus years old, and it's really from a national level. We've had our moment in the sun, and we have opportunities to have even greater moments in the future.
Absolutely.
Well, Joe, I would simply say that, psychologists have long known that you become what you think you are. You become what you think you want to be. And so for Erie, it's a big question of raising the sights of the community to what kind of a town does Erie want to be, what kind of an area does Erie region want to be, how do we integrate the strengths of this region, because we become what we think we are or what we want to be. And so this is an occasion for us to think about who we are, to take pride in who we are, and most importantly, to start charting the course of how we can make Erie the most exciting community, the Erie region, the most exciting place in the state of Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you two guys for coming in. It was my pleasure to have you here. I hope that those of you that are watching today will tune into this program and tell your friends about it, because there's so much going on in Erie County that you need to know, and there's so many answers that you can get by just making a phone call to the Jefferson Society. And if you're watching today and you don't know where to go with a problem, let me encourage you right now. A phone call is just one stop away from maybe someone helping you solve the problem that you have. So with that, I want to thank my guest. I want to thank you for watching today. And please, if there's something that's going on in your life and you don't know where to go, please give the Jefferson Society a call. They can help.
Thanks, Joe, for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you, Carl, for being here. Thank you, folks, for watching today.